I'll be actually explaining how to use NumPy, Pandas, Matplotlib and stuff. So we'll start with NumPy, and before we start with NumPy, first we'll look into why NumPy is required, or what is it, what does it solve in order for us to use. Why not just use whatever is already existing in basic Python data structures is there? No, why we need NumPy? Okay. To get this started, first we will be doing all the code in Jupyter Notebook. So in order to install that, just start some your virtual environment, something like how I can start something like Python 3 minus mvenv dot venv. Okay, so I'm keeping this virtual environment inside this folder so that whatever packages you install does not affect whatever is already installed in your machine. So each project you start will have its own separate Python environment with all the pip packages separated. Okay, so I've already executed this, so that's already in venv. So I will activate that by using source venv bin activate. So once that is activated, here in the beginning you can see that it says that dot venv, saying that here now that virtual environment is activated. Still, if we have a doubt, we can just type which Python and see that okay, it's picking up the Python from this virtual environment only. Okay, once that is there, just install the packages that whatever are necessary. So for that, it's this is already uploaded in Git, that link you have, no? So, or it will be in this description of this video. So okay, we just need to do pip 3 install minus r and say hey, install it from this pip package, pip requirements.txt. Basically it's all installed for me, but still I will just show you what and all is inside that. Set up pip requirements. Yeah, you can see Jupyter. This is like that fancy way to actually use the thingy. Okay. Oh, that if that did not make sense, basically I'm saying that you can execute commands instead of running it on terminal. No, you can execute it on in Chrome on window, and you can see the results at runtime, and then go update something on the top and rerun it. Okay, Jupyter you can install. Matplotlib is for library for plotting. We will be using NumPy, what this video will be covering. Pandas for data frames. Scikit-learn, SciPy, Seaborn, all are like for data science thingy only. Seaborn is probably for plotting. Okay, and this contains scikit-learn contains some machine learning function modules actually that we will be using. Okay, fine. For now, if you have NumPy and Jupyter installed, that's probably sufficient. So if others are there also, it's good, no issues. Okay, once that is there, go to the notebooks, or you can go into any folder you want and just type Jupyter, Jupyter, oh Jesus, Jupyter, and then notebook. And if you hit enter, you will get a window like this, which opens up all the, in that directory it will open up one window where all the notebook files will be created. It will always be in that ipynb files. It's like ipython notebook. NB is for notebook problem. Okay, so in this we will be looking into NumPy. So we'll open up NumPy, and that's there over here. Okay, so this is basically like getting started. Once Python is installed, environment is set up, you have Jupyter running, you can pull up on instead of a terminal, you can start on notebook and execute it. Okay, so fine. We'll now look into why, uh, how NumPy or some pandas, why we need and what is their use actually. Okay, before we get started, okay, we'll start with NumPy basics. Okay, we know that almost all data that we use in our for data science or probably for analyzing stuff, we will, all this data is essentially 0 or 1. Like we are going to store these 0 or 1 data in a huge array and process it. Like if it's an image, we will be keeping like the RGB thing, it will be in a 3-dimensional array. Each uh, dimension of the 3-dimensional array would be representing like red, green, blue and their intensities. If it's a music file, let's say we were analyzing some large audio wave, it will be the intensity with respect to the time only, no? And if let's say we were given a storybook like Shakespeare, some book we had got to process or analyze, then we needed to, this data will be like how many times the word thou art, something like that, will appear inside this book. So we can still represent that textual data also as a array of 0 or 1 which is mapped to that specific word also, we could have it. So now fundamentally everything is now breaking down and coming into storing of numbers in arrays, right? Okay, if we are okay with and like we have understood that, okay, so everything is probably getting stored as large arrays. um, okay, fine. So what we already have in Python for this is the list variable, right? Like in order to store large number of items, we can use the list only. So for example here, you can see that we have a list, we'll call that as million or something, and keep a million integers inside that. So, right, range 0 to 10 power 6, so that's a million. And we can see that, okay, so it has created a list with a million integers inside it and kept it. That was fairly simple actually, and it executed quick also. But when you are work in like in image, right, like if it's a high resolution image, or if the audio wave is quite large duration, or if the textbook, like whatever I explained, that Shakespeare thing, if those sizes are large, we it might not end up with just a million items, it might be way more than that, right? Like and it's not as simple as just holding an integer into it, right? It can be like a large floating point numbers. So okay, we might have to store all of these data inside it, but we could still continue using list only. I do not see why we need that yet as of now. Okay, so we'll just pull up this list, but while working with all of these large data things, we need to store this in memory only, right? We can't keep this in some file and then later pick it up. It has to be stored in memory, and we will need to perform actions on top of this. Okay, we created a list, it has a million items. Next is we'll just look into what is this some more information about this list, which what that we have just created. So if we print that information, we get to know that, okay, hey, this list has a million objects, and it's occupying about 9 million bytes of memory. So in my RAM probably it's occupying that much memory. Okay, fine, but that does not sound correct, right? Like if I'm storing just an array, it's basically an array of integers from 0 to a million, like excluding the last one. So somewhere it's going wrong, no? Like why should it be 9 million? So if I had a billion numbers, it will be like 9 billion. That's why it's occupying 9 times its size in my memory, no? Okay, if we go look at basic, this is like the amount of space that is occupied, no? For an signed character, it will be somewhat close to like 1 byte it should do, but it can only range from 128 to 127, minus 128 to 127. If we were storing it as integers, it will be like 2 or 4 bytes. It can range from like minus 32,000 to plus 32,000, right? Or if it was 4 bytes, we could go from 2 million minus 2 million to plus 2 million. Okay, so we are anyway storing in our list over here only integers at this point, and it's expected that if it's an integer and it should store somewhat around 4 bytes also, this size should be 4 million bytes or something. No, it should not be somewhat close to like 9 million. It doesn't make sense why it should take so much space up, almost more than 2 times the space. Okay, we now know that, okay, it's occupying a little bit more space than what we were expecting it. Okay, let's see what's actually happening inside, no? Because Python is basically like dynamically typed. That means like a variables can hold some data of some specific type at a single point in its execution. Then later on, somewhere else in part of the program, it can hold another type of data also. It's not fixed like at the beginning of the program. We do not say that, hey, this variable should be of this type and it should be like that till the entire program. That's not the case here. No, it's dynamically typed. You can give x is equal to 10 in the first line. 2 lines down, you can even give x equal to a dictionary also. So that will work. But whereas in C++ and all, we used to give which are statically typed, there we used to say something like int a equal to 10, and if we give a equal to some other string or like a template or a dictionary, it wouldn't work. Map, it will not work, no, because it will say that hey, you already declared this a as integer type right above only. Okay, how this x is equal to 10 and x equal to a dictionary works in Python, like just like a high level overview of this is, if you go and look into that Python code, no, like source code for Python, even inside they are also implementing C structures only. But one example of that is in this link. This is basically, I think, Python code only there, right? So each object in Python, let's say it's a basic integer also, it will be having something like ref count. It will keep track of how many other uh, uh, Python objects are pointing towards me, so it keeps track of that reference count. Then it keeps track of, hey, what's my type, because it's dynamically changing over the flow of the program. It can be like an integer in one place, and another place it can be a dictionary, so it needs to keep track of that type also, right? So it keeps that type. Then if it was an array or something, then it'll have previous, next, head, then what is its type, and where is the current head of this Python object, and what is its size. So all of these details has to get stored somewhere, right? It can't be stored globally, it has to be stored with respect to that object that you are creating. So that's why this x now, not only it's not just a 10 right now, it's this huge C structure which keeps track of reference count, type, uh, size, and a lot of things. So then it makes sense that okay, this 10 in C++, it would have just been like 1 byte, but whereas in Python it's more 1 byte to store that 10, and a little bit more information that it has to store, right? Okay, which means now it makes sense why this list of million objects, whatever million integers we created on top, is occupying 9 million bytes. Okay, for this already we all have a solution in Python called as the array object. If you say okay, I'll create an array using this array module in Python, and say that hey, I'm storing integers, and they take, and you have to pass in that list of that million items. And then if we go check its size and how many items it contains, it says is, yeah, here I'm containing a million objects, and I'm occupying only 4,064 bytes. That is good, like with respect to, like, if each object inside this list was containing inside this array was containing an unsigned int or an int of 4 bytes, it would be like, it makes sense that 4 into a million is 4 million plus a little bit information about the array, so you get that extra 64 also. So I mean, this is like not that extra 64, no, I'm not exactly sure as where it comes from, but we get it. We are at least okay with storing 4 million, right? But the problem with using array, no, is that it's not that simple or as easy as using other solutions that are out there actually. Like, now to do a specific task, it's way too easy and simple to do it using another library called as the NumPy library. Okay, so hence this whole thing comes into picture is because we are trying to access and store and work with a lot of data in our in memory, and like traversing, slicing, or doing some specific tasks in this large array of numbers would be expensive if each item in this array is occupying more than what it's supposed to know. Like, I don't need the object type size when I'm working with a list of a million objects, when I already know that it's supposed to be just a list of numbers. I don't want to keep that extra information. So the alternate that's proposed is NumPy actually. uh, Okay, in NumPy, uh, though it's not that it's what do you say? It's going to save your space in memory for handling, or no, nothing like that. But it has a lot of functions which are easy to use, and probably, yeah, future you will get to know. It's simple. Okay, so we'll just give that a shot. Like, we'll create a NumPy array of a million items and say that hey, each one of them is an int 32 type, and see how much memory it occupies. It's saying that yeah, it's occupying close to, for a million items, it's occupying 4,096 bytes. That is a bit more than this, but a little bit extra it is occupying. which can be actually optimized, but over from an overview perspective, it is still better than the list. And because of its extra modules and features that it supports, right, and ease of use, like if you're stuck also, very easily you can solve your problems if you're using NumPy probably to create that multi-dimensional arrays and everything. So yeah, NumPy is a better solution. Now we will look into, okay, now we got to know why we need NumPy, right? We'll see what and all features that NumPy support, because NumPy is the basis for all, like in pandas. In pandas is nothing but like a in your, it's like an in-memory database kind of a thingy. It's like a table in which each row can is nothing but a NumPy array. Okay, so this is like the basis of why we need NumPy and how it fits into this large picture, because in TensorFlow each tensor is nothing but a NumPy array. Okay, um, so yeah, in the next one we will actually be looking into what and all features that does NumPy support, and then we'll go ahead with that. Yeah, thank you.